Funding for NotAVampyre is provided by viewers like you. Find perks and tiers at patreon.com/NotAVampyre. Thank you. Last year I made a video answering commonly asked questions regarding being agender, and it was a blast. So I wondered, how else can I milk my queer identities for clicks? Answer: make one about asexuality. In all seriousness, asexuality is also a poorly understood identity by most people, and there's a lot of uncomfortable and frankly invasive questions that come up anytime someone says they're ace. Plenty of which your random run-of-the-mill asexual might not want to answer or might not be able to communicate why the queries are bothering them for fear of coming off as the whiny snowflake who just wants to be special that many people accuse us of being. So I once again took to Reddit and requested the awesome people of our asexuality give me their most hated questions for me to answer here as both a way to educate and give a voice to those who get these sometimes nasty asks. This isn't really an introductory video as to what asexuality is, or why it's not a thing needing curing, or even why we should be considered LGBT. But this other video is. There will be a card or something linking to the previous video where I talk about all of that. Do you have sex? 1. That's none of your business. A common trend you'll notice with some of these is that they're requesting very personal information. Information most would otherwise not want from people they're not romantically or sexually engaged with. Yes, this may be a legit curiosity you have, but that doesn't mean you are owed an answer or that you should ask it if you don't have that kind of relationship with the asexual person in question. I mean, just consider if you'd be cool with a random or an acquaintance asking to know about your sex life. It doesn't matter if this interaction is online or off because the line between the two have become blurred. Even if you aren't putting your face on the question as you're asking it, you can still come off to the person you're asking as though you're there physically asking them if they have sex, not some nebulous entity that starts and ends on the internet. What I'm trying to encourage is checking to see if they're okay with going down this line of questioning before just assuming it's fine. To check with the other person instead of taking them coming out as ace as an invitation to ask for their personal details. And before even doing so, maybe consider whether this is the right context to ask that kind of question. Yeah, you could say that they should just not respond if they feel the questions are too intimate and make them uncomfortable to reply to, but that doesn't help. Asking the question obligates that person to be the ambassador for all ace people, and now they have to prove that asexuals aren't all talk by doing something that maybe makes them uncomfortable, like responding honestly. And be damned if they don't respond quick enough. And whenever such questions regarding sex come up, it's never, do asexuals have sex? It's always, do you have sex? Do you masturbate? What do you personally do? It's not about asexuals in general. It's always about me personally, the asexual being asked. But also, it's kinda irrelevant to asexuality. The common misconception about being asexual is that you're celibate, that you hate sex, that not getting your genitals wet makes you ace, and that very much isn't the case. Asexuality is not feeling sexual attraction for anyone or not wanting to act sexually based on any attractions you feel. Yeah, a large population of asexuals are repulsed by the idea of sex and doing it. A lot of asexuals just don't want anything sexual. But then there's a good number of us who are just mad to sex or even enjoy it. There's plenty of us who may not be turned on by their partner, but still love getting their buttons pushed and sharing this form of physical intimacy with someone they love. It's not so much they do it for their partner, though unfortunately many sex-repulsed asexuals have felt pressure to do so, but more that they want to bond with their partner physically. Hell, for some, even if they don't enjoy sex much themselves, they may enjoy pleasuring their partner and sharing this exclusive experience with someone that they love. That doesn't make them not ace any more than being in a straight relationship proves that a bi person isn't bi. How can you have sex if you're not attracted to your partner? So for us asexuals who aren't sex repulsed, instead of basing it off of sexual attraction, the deciding factors are emotional bonds and romantic attraction. How intimate your relationship is and how deeply you're connected. Basically, do we feel ready to take our intimate activities to more sensual levels and share our nakedness for shared enjoyment? An asexual person might not get turned on by their partner's body, but that doesn't mean that sex can't still feel good, or other things like kinks or certain kinds of touches can't make them hot and bothered. Do you masturbate? Do you? Just like any other person, that depends on the asexual. Some do, some don't. Please understand that being asexual doesn't mean you can question what sorts of me time we engage in when we don't have that kind of relationship. Just like with whether or not we have sex, that's not an okay thing to ask just because someone tells you they're asexual. You may be curious, but asexuals are people too with personal boundaries. Does that mean you can't get it up? Again, more info than many people want to give. And no, asexuality doesn't mean that you can't get turned on. Asexuality means that you don't feel sexual attraction for any sex or gender, or that the attraction you feel doesn't lead you to desire sexual interactions with someone. So even if I don't get hot and bothered from looking at my partner's body, a well-written piece of erotica or kink-related content might do the trick. Asexuality isn't erectile dysfunction. It's like saying a straight dude's member is broken because he can't get turned on by conventionally attractive guys. He just doesn't feel sexual attraction for them. So you get off from the letter A? I get that this is meant as a joke and most people likely don't mean it as an honest question, but please stop saying this. It might get a giggle the first time, but you're not the first or last person to say this in response to someone stating that they're asexual. It's not even really a question, and it's a bit mocking with how often we hear it. So you reproduce by budding? No, just no. For me, when I get this, it's less of a joke and more of an accusation. Like, asexual means reproducing without a partner, so is that what you mean? This usually comes from someone who's already in the camp of LGBT people just keep making up new labels for every dumb thing they can think of, and are approaching my declaring myself asexual as a sign that I just want to be special. So they try to disprove my asexuality by appealing to one of the dictionary definitions to asexual. The trouble is, though, that dictionaries don't determine how language is used. People do. If the former were the case, then dictionaries wouldn't need to be regularly updated to reflect modern vocabulary. And who are the ones who compose dictionaries but people who can pick and choose what gets printed and what gets left out? While the English language is a whole field of study, it's not something you can scientific method to determine the true meanings of words. What a word is understood or used to convey isn't discoverable in nature but determined by people. Much of the time, dictionaries are playing catch up to modern vocabulary.
Here's the thing, if you ask dictionary editors, what they'll tell you is they're just trying to keep up with us as we change the language.
Never doesn't make up terms first, then export them to popular use. So you don't want a partner? No, you're thinking about aromantics who don't feel romantic attraction towards any sex or gender. The distinction here is that an asexual person might still develop a crush and be romantically in love with another person and thus want to be romantically intimate with them, even if it means not being sexually active with them, while an aromantic person might be turned on by someone's body and want to be sexual with them, but may not be into them romantically or desire a romantic partnership with them. Romance and sexual desire don't always go hand in hand. I mean, think of the separation between screw and marry when considering candidates for screw, marry, kill. You can lust for sexual intercourse with someone, but not want to form the kind of intimate emotional bond a romantic relationship requires with them. Like how you might want to be someone's friend with benefits, but not want to develop a full, long-term dating relationship with them. And sex isn't the only thing you can do with a romantic partner in the first place. Your partner is also your best friend, your lifelong companion, the person you cuddle up with when you're falling apart, the one you want to kiss on New Year's Eve, the person you think of when you're apart. Some people have asserted that the partners to asexuals are basically no different from platonic friends, but that's not true. Sex isn't the only form of intimacy two people can partake in, and it's not the deciding factor that says a couple are officially romantically connected. Why do we call people boyfriends, girlfriends, joyfriends, etc. without knowing whether or not they've done the satin tango? So it's like bad Christianity? As though a person's religious denomination is like a sickness you can catch in varying degrees? Again, many, but not all asexuals are celibate. Sexlessness is not what makes a person ace. And a person's repulsion to sex isn't a choice. It's just how we're born, not determined by how some book or man at a podium demands we conduct ourselves. We aren't sex avoidant because we can't find anyone to do it with. Just like how you naturally want to be sexually active with someone you love, many of us naturally would rather nope out of that and just cuddle with our partners. How can you be gay and asexual? As I pointed out in regards to the difference between aromantics and asexuals, sexual attraction and romantic attraction are two different things. Asexuals may not see someone and say, "Oh my god, hotness, I want to bang you," but they will still be inclined to want to date certain genders and sexes. Some asexuals will prefer people of the opposite sex, others will want to engage with the same sex, a number of people might want to date anyone of any gender or sex, etc. For me personally, while I don't want to touch D's and V's alike, I can be aesthetically and romantically drawn in by slightly feminine and androgynous people. They're more likely to be the ones I feel a romantic connection to and desire to form a deeper bond with. It's like my sexual orientation is asexual, while my romantic orientation, as far as I can describe it, is panromantic. For most people, their sexual and romantic orientations align, meaning they're both sexually and romantically attracted to a certain kind of person. But for some, those two attractions just aren't lined up so neatly. The only case where an asexual's sexual and romantic orientation would line up is if they were also aromantic, but that's not how every asexual person is. So that's why we use phrases like homoromantic asexual, panromantic asexual, heteromantic asexual, and so on, to concisely declare that while we feel no sexual attraction for anyone, here are the people we feel romantic attraction for. Or, in other words, I may not want to do sexual things with Goth Daddy, but I'd sure like to be more than friends with him. Aren't you afraid of growing old and alone since no one will date you without sex? Yeah, and what do you want us to do about it? Just lie back and think of England, or decide to want sex? Some asexuals don't care because they're also aromantic or don't really want to date for other reasons. But some asexuals are troubled by the fact that most people will expect sex as a staple of a romantic relationship because it's not something they want to engage in. That's why we tend to look for other sexual pulsed asexuals, might opt for a polyamorous relationship, and generally try to find people who are okay with not having sex with them. Sex repulsed asexuals know the world isn't made for them. Pointing it out won't change what we are or how we feel about doing the deed. All it does is remind us that dating is just inherently more difficult because we constantly need to have these conversations and cut off people we crush on because we're not sexually compatible. It's like telling a wheelchair-bound person that someone might think they're undateable because they can't walk. Like, okay, and what do you want them to do about it? You think they never thought about that? They only have to live as themselves every day. How does your partner feel about this? Why does that matter when I say I'm ace and in a relationship? It's not like my partner can say, your asexuality is inconvenient for me, and I can do something about it, like just not be asexual. Just like how a straight person can't just decide to not be straight, I can't make myself not asexual. The details of my asexuality and how they work with the person I'm romantically involved with are between us and no one else unless we both decide to share that information. It's not something that's owed and answered just because I'm a dating ace, and asexuality isn't something you can change for your partner no matter how much you might want to try. And trust me, people have tried. How can you know you're asexual if you've never had sex? Because like with any other sexuality, being ace isn't only about wanting or not wanting sex. And like with any other sexuality, sex isn't the only thing that decides who you're attracted to. Why is it okay for someone who has never performed the risky twist to declare that they're straight, but an asexual needs to give it a try first? Some people will argue that you can't know you're asexual in middle or high school, but if that's so, then how can you know whether you're straight, gay, or in between well enough? Teens are actively discouraged from boning, and we don't respond to them coming out as gay with, well, have you actually tried homosexual intercourse yet? It's hypocritical to assert that sex is the barrier to labeling yourself when simply having a crush on someone is enough for other sexualities. Do you want to experiment to find out? No. I'm sure you'll find the right person. It's temporary. You just haven't had the right sex. I feel bad for you because sex is good. No. Just no. Asexuality isn't a phase. Yes, sexuality in general can sometimes be fluid for some folks, but that's a human thing, not an asexual phenomenon. Anecdotal evidence, but I've been asexual for as far back as I can remember. Even before I knew what the term meant or before I knew it applied to me, I knew I experienced sexuality different from all my friends, be they gay, straight, or all the above. I wasn't experiencing the lust or drive for sex like they were, even through college. I couldn't really determine what made someone hot or relate to the feeling of wanting to bang based off someone's looks. This divide first became evident to me in 8th grade, and still now, at the age of 25, I feel the same way, even after having multiple good sexual encounters. You enjoying sex and being incapable of imagining loving life without it doesn't mean I, or a sex-repulsed asexual, must be miserable. That's like saying I ought to pity you for not waiting with bated breath for every new chapter of my favorite manga. We are different people who like different things. Did you know some people eat liver on purpose? I'm one of them. What's normal for you is otherworldly for me. And many of us have found the people we want to grow old and become raisins with, and are still just as asexual as the day we first came out. This isn't some prudish behavior to be cured by a good rowdy ride. Just as you don't tell a straight man that they just haven't met the right guy to make them gay, it's as unreasonable to respond to an asexual person with some assertion that their sexuality is only a matter of time. It's a sexuality, not a fashion. Look, curiosity and asking questions is fine. I and other asexuals know that we're in the minority here, and it's no secret most people don't know what asexuality even is. I don't want to discourage investigation and the genuine seeking of knowledge. Our world would be a better place if we had dialogue about the range of experiences we as humans have. But please don't let curiosity and wanting to know more about asexuality, or really anything for that matter, act as license to request personal information. Like with anyone, establish context and ask permission before doing so. Make sure the other person is okay going down that line of queries beforehand. Don't assume that by trusting you enough to come out as asexual, that person has given you the go-ahead to be invasive. We're happy to educate, but in a way that treats us like people too. Okay, so my camera died again, but I had it under control because I knew to expect it. Well, now that I finally got this long-ass script read and recorded, I think it's about time for me to rest my voice and get ready for work, because it's just about time for me to head in. If you want to make sure I can devote more time to these videos and the content that hopefully you enjoy, then you should pledge to me on Patreon, patreon.com/NotAVampyre. And you get some nice perks in return, like you can see these videos 2 days early, you get access to all the scripts I have, and all their lack of spelling technique glory. And you can request I make a video on the topic of your choice. Jacob Bilo has been doing that for a couple of months now. And if you want to make sure that you see when these videos do come out, then you should hit me up on Discord. There'll be a content stream with the things that I am involved with and that I personally make, and you can also tap me up in my NotAVampyre crypt, or of course you can talk to me on Twitter at NotAVampyre. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and until next time.